We're going to be starting today with a quick algebra review, and we're going to begin with order of operations. When working with multiple mathematical functions such as division, addition, multiplication, etc., there's a specific order we must follow, and this is known in math as our order of operations. An easy way to remember the order is by using the phrase PEMDAS, which stands for, let's write this down, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, and division. Now the thing with multiplication and division, you do those from left to right. You'll see some examples. Addition is what the A stands for, and subtraction. Now addition and subtraction you also do from left to right. All right, so now one thing I want to say about parentheses, if you have more than one set say inside the other, we're going to say start with the innermost set. And I'm also going to say to ignore parentheses with only one number. Because if you have parentheses with just one number, that means multiplication. All right, so let's move on to the next page. And let's try a couple of examples using the order of operations. So here we have 4 plus in parentheses 10 minus 25 divided by 5 times 2. Here's our PEMDAS. And we want to start inside the parentheses. We have subtraction and division. Well, division comes first before subtraction, so we'll do that part. So we have 10 minus, well, 25 divided by 5 is 5. And we'll rewrite everything else. We're still in the parentheses, so we're going to say 10 minus 5, which is 5. Now we've gotten rid of our parentheses, so we have 4 plus 5 times 2. Multiplication comes before addition, so we say 5 times 2, which is 10, and we're just left with 4 plus 10, which gives us 14. Moving on. We have 3 plus 2 squared in parentheses, minus in parentheses 27 divided by 9 times 4, minus in parentheses negative 10. Now remember I said ignore parentheses with just one number. So it doesn't really matter which of the other two sets we start with. Let's go ahead with 3 plus 2, which gives us 5. So we have 5 squared. We also need to do the next set. We have 27 divided by 9 times 4. Now you have multiplication and division, but division comes further to the left. So we do that first. 27 divided by 9 is 3. So we have 3 times 4. We still have parentheses since we aren't down to one number yet. So let's finish up the parentheses. 3 times 4 is 12. Bring down everything else. Now we have exponents, subtraction, and subtraction. Exponents comes first, so 5 to the second is 25, minus 12 minus negative 10. Subtraction or addition, we do left to right, so 25 minus 12 gives us 13, minus negative 10. You probably remember two negatives together like this. If you're subtracting a negative, it makes a positive. So you have 13 plus 10, which gives you 23. Now moving on to the next problem. I'd like you to try this one on your own and see what you get. We can check that in class. Solving equations. It's very important that we get comfortable and good at solving equations in this class. Although this is an algebra skill, we will be using it continuously throughout the semester. So remember, we want to get x's or get the variables all on one side. Always remember what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So let's move all the x's onto one side. It doesn't matter to me which side we go with. Let's say we move them to the left. So we're going to subtract 4x from each side. And we have negative 2x plus 3 equals negative 7. We want to get x alone, so we subtract 3 from each side. And we have negative 2x, the 3's cancel, equals negative 10. Divide each side by negative 2 to get the numbers in front of the x to cancel, or get the number in front of the x to cancel, and we end up with x is 5. Now that should be a review. Now if we want to check that, we're going to plug x equals 5 into the original equation. So we're going to have 2 times 5 plus 3. We want to make sure, I'll put a question mark, that equals negative 7 plus 4 times 5. Well, 2 times 5 is 10. 10 plus 3 is 13. And on the right side, do our multiplication first. 4 plus 5 is 20. Negative 7 plus 20 is indeed 13, so they are equal to one another. So let's move on. Here are the steps for solving equations. Distribute where necessary. Combine like terms where necessary. Move the variable to one side of the equation using addition or subtraction. Move the constant to the other side of the equation using addition or subtraction. Divide by the coefficient on the variable, that's the number in front of the variable, and then check your answer. So let's move on. Here are some to try. Starting with the first equation, we want to get rid of the parentheses, so we're going to have to distribute. So we're going to say negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x equals negative 27. Next, we want to get x alone, so let's get rid of whatever's around it. Let's get rid of this minus 3 by adding 3 to each side. The 3's cancel, and we have negative 6x equals negative 24. We want to get rid of the number in front of the x, which is negative 6. That's multiplying the x, so we do the opposite and divide by negative 6. The negative 6's cancel, and I have x equals positive 4. Negative 24 divided by negative 6 is positive 4. If we check this, plug our number in. So we have negative 3 plus 2 times 4, so let's say times, equals negative 27. So let's do what's in parentheses first. We have addition and multiplication. Let's do the multiplication first. So we have 1 plus 8 in the parentheses. I should put a question mark here to indicate I'm not sure if it equals negative 27 yet. In the parentheses, we have 1 plus 8, which is 9. And the negative 3 in front of the parentheses indicates multiplication. So I'm really saying negative 3 times 9, which sure enough does give me negative 27. So that checked out just fine. Let's move on to the next problem. We have negative 3x plus 5 equals 11 minus 2x. We want to get all the x's onto one side. It doesn't really matter which side we go with, so I'm going to move the negative 3x. So I'm going to have to say plus 3x, add it to each side. They cancel on the left, and I have 5 equals 11 plus x. I want to get x alone, so I subtract 11 from each side. The 11's cancel, and we have negative 6 equals x. Check this. plug it into the original equation. So I have negative 3 times negative 6 plus 5. Does that equal 11 minus 2 times negative 6? On the left, doing the multiplication first, negative 3 times negative 6 is 18, and 18 plus 5 is 23. On the right, doing the multiplication first, negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12, so I can write that as a plus 12. And 11 plus 12 does give us 23, so they are indeed equal, and the problem checks. Going to the next page, we are doing negative 3 times in parentheses negative 8 plus 7x equals negative 81. Let's distribute. Negative 3 times negative 8 gives us 24. Negative 3 times 7x gives you negative 21x, which equals negative 81. We want to get all of the x's. I'm sorry, not all the x's. We want to get the x alone. So what we're going to do is subtract 24 from each side. So we end up with negative 21x equals negative 105. We want to get x alone now, so we'll divide by the negative 21, which is in front, its coefficient. The negative 21's cancel, and we end up with x equals 5. If we check it, we have negative 3 times negative 8 plus 7 times 5, and we want to know, does that equal 81? Well, in the parentheses, we'll do the multiplication first. 7 times 5 is 35. And I have negative 8 plus 35, which gives me 27. So I have negative 3 times 27, which does indeed give me negative 81. And I should have written the negative over here because it was in the original problem. So negative 81 does equal negative 81, and it does check. So that is all for today, and thank you very much for joining me.